You are watching and listening to the Two Chumps Football Podcast. I'm Chad Wilson. That's Amo Calamino. And we are here with you. It is officially college football bowl season. We're down to the final 2 weeks of the NFL. And I say this every week when I get on, Amo, but we are speeding towards the end here. Within a few weeks, we're going to crown a national champion, all of the controversy aside, and we are going to figure out our NFL playoff situation. I'm kind of geeked for the NFL playoffs, see if anyone can beat the Kansas City Chiefs plus the refs. Looking forward to seeing if that can happen. What's going on with Detroit? Are they crumbling? Are they going to be able to hang on together? I'm feeling a little, what's the word? Is it disappointed? I'm disappointed on how things are going for Detroit. You've put together one hell of a season, and we know Detroit's history. Like, why, man? Why is this happening to you,
You know,
Detroit?
it's funny, slowly, and I have to admit, it kind of snuck up on me, but, that first game against the Vikings, the Lions won 31-29. They're going to play again, and it's likely going to decide that division. So all year, we went through the season assuming, at least in the regular season, Detroit was the best team, and yet we look up and they very well might not win their own division.
Man, and I'll tell you what, right now, Green Bay looks as dangerous as anyone.
Oh, the NFC, listen, the NFC playoffs, at least from the way I'm looking at it, are much more interesting. I mean, to me, the AFC is kind of clear cut. I think Kansas City and Buffalo, and we'll see. I want to see what Baltimore does first before I make the statement. I think
I'm ready to kick Pittsburgh out of this thing.
maybe not, but I think Kansas City and Buffalo are a tier above. In the NFC, I look at the Eagles, the Lions, the Vikings, the Packers, and I'll tell you what, if the Rams are healthy and protect their quarterback, they've got those two receivers are a pain in the ass to
They
deal
can
with.
run the game and they can get guys open and stay in
Yes.
any game.
And they might have, well, they definitely have one of the 3 or 4 best coaches in the game. Andy Reid, the two Harbaughs, and Sean McVay to me are,
Outside of that, Emil, with what Washington has at quarterback,
yeah,
and with what I see out of Tampa Bay, that can upset anybody.
anybody.
Yeah, so it's we got some fun headed our way. I will say this: for as much trash and stuff that we say about college football, and trust me, on today's show, we're gonna have an at-long discussion about the future of college football. We've had it on this show, but this is probably going to be even more of a different talk than we've ever had as we start facing some of the grim realities of what college football has going on right now. I am excited to watch this 12 team playoff unfold, and it starts this weekend, for which we will have picks.
I think the most interesting 2 games because of the weather conditions. I want to see how SMU handles their trip up here because it will be cold in State College, Pennsylvania, Saturday afternoon. And I want to see.
It can get kind of cold in Dallas. I just think Tennessee's got a real problem on it.
Yeah, it's going to be cold in Ohio. So we're going to see how both those teams do. We didn't pick college football last week, which was probably the best thing that happened to us. I mean,
Right.
maybe we recalibrate like we usually do for the Bulls because we were struggling for much of this college football season.
Yeah, in the years past, we've had like our 10-pack of bowl picks. I can't sit here and tell you exactly how many games we're going to end up picking. It might be 9, might be 11, might 12, but we'll just keep doing it week by week like we always do. We'll try to bring you 3 picks until we can't anymore because obviously the field is going to dwindle down. So today you'll get 3 picks from me, 3 picks from Emil in college football. And I think, Emil, we should jump into that right now.
I'll do my picks first in college, then you can go. And because when we get to the NFL section, I'm going to have you go first because we'll brag on you a little bit with that season. But college coming into the bowl season, I'm 18-27, pathetic. You're 20-25, slightly less pathetic. So we need to have a big bowl season. And I'm going to start off in-state college on Saturday afternoon. I think in the end, Penn State will win this game. But I also think they got a little ahead of themselves with this line in Vegas because Penn State got dealt a bigger blow than most people realize with their backup quarterback hitting the transfer portal this week. And you say, that's the backup quarterback. He's a regular part of the Penn State game plan. There's probably 8 to 10 offensive plays every game that kid was involved in because he's an excellent runner. And they had different packages where he'd come and take a snap and maybe they'd put Aller out wide. I mean, just goofy stuff that worked. And that's something that gets removed from the toolbox. And then you got an SMU team that comes in that kind of runs an offense that tends to give Penn State problems. Mm-hmm. Much like Oregon did. They don't have the talent of an Oregon, but they do a lot of that throwing the ball over the place. And I think that there's enough offense there that if they can withstand that first quarter and not get way behind where they become one-dimensional, I think SMU can cover the 8.5. They did it against Clemson. They fell behind 14, but they keep throwing the ball. They keep putting pressure on you. And if you have a few bad possessions, before you know it, you're still in a game with SMU. They're a good football team. You don't go 11-2 as a fluke. I like them plus 8.5. Roll to the next game on Saturday. And listen, Texas is like my number 2 team. Okay, I want Texas to win, but I got to tell you, unless I'm missing something, I don't know how they came up with this line. There's nothing I've watched from Texas over the last 5 weeks of the season that tells me they should blow out a competent Clemson team, a team that has a coach with a pedigree, a program that in the last decade has been on the big stage, and all of a sudden, ACC champions, and you're giving them 12 points. This just feels like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It looks fishy to me. I don't know if it's just they think Texas has that much more talent. I just don't see Clemson getting blown out in this game. Do I think Texas probably wins it at the end by 7 points or something, by 6 points? Sure. But 12? Give me Clemson. That's easy. Finally, this is the one. I just don't love Ohio State this year. I've seen them play, even that Indiana game where they beat them 38-15. Honestly, they made that game early on much more difficult than it had to be. Indiana didn't play good ball that day. I don't love Tennessee's quarterback, and I don't love Ohio State's quarterback, but I think this is a very defensive football game, very low scoring, and I think 7 points to me looks good with two teams that I feel are pretty evenly matched. Again, don't love the Ohio State offense to get a blowout unless Tennessee goes out and helps them and kicks the ball around. I don't think they will. Therefore, I think it's a close game. So give me Tennessee plus 7.
All right. Summarizing the bowl picks for Emil in this week 16 or 17, I guess we call it.
Yes.
He likes SMU plus 8.5 in their game against Penn State. He thinks Clemson's being disrespected. He's going to take them plus 12 in their game against Texas. And he likes Tennessee traveling north, which, these SEC teams never do here. Traveling north to take on Ohio State. He thinks it'll be a close game. So he says give him Tennessee plus 7. Emil, here's what I'm going with. I'm going to start off by taking the Fighting Irish. This is going to occur on Friday night. Emil, I think all that I needed to see with Indiana, listen, you've had a great year, Indiana. It's been great. You've worked yourself into this 12-team college football playoff, and it's an inaugural season. So you picked a fine time to have a historic season at Indiana. But everything I needed to see occurred in that game against Ohio State. Sure, Ohio State started off slow, and that's kind of what Ohio State does. But once they started flexing their muscle, it was a runaway. Literally, the Indiana turned into the team that they've been for the last however long you want to talk about. And I just think we're in a situation now where it's the big boy league, right? We're like, this is the big time. I'm not sure Indiana's going to be ready for this. I'm not sure Indiana is going to be able to measure up. I think Notre Dame's been maligned for most of the season because we're just kind of programmed to do that. Okay, people don't really like Notre Dame. They have their own damn network. They refuse to get into a conference. And there have been biases towards Notre Dame for the longest as we could remember. There's always been tears for Notre Dame. But they actually have a really good football team this year. They're capable of being physical. They're capable of dominating and controlling the line of scrimmage. They're capable of running clock. They're capable of controlling the time of possession here. I think that's all in the works right here. And also, I feel like their defense is underrated. I think that's going to be a problem for Indiana as they try to operate. If Indiana starts finding themselves in a punt, pass, and kick situation, meaning they've got to punt more than they would like to, and they have in most of their games, they find themselves having to kick field goals when they get into the red zone, and they end up having to pass the ball around a whole bunch, it's going to represent disaster for them because they just think Notre Dame will overtake, impose their will, and that's really what I see happening here. I think the Fighting Irish flex their muscle and run away with this game. It ends up being one-sided in the blowout. I'm going to agree with you on this Clemson-Texas game. This is very disrespectful. So now it becomes not even just about the physical talents of the two teams. It becomes about trying to prove something. And I maintain this and will to my grave. Football rewards people who have something to prove. And in this game, given what odds makers have done and how the public have spoken about this matchup, Clemson comes in here as the team with something to prove. This is a Clemson team that people can't seem to eliminate that opening game against Georgia. They can't seem to get that out of their mind. But once you take that game away, you're looking at a team that put up a ton of points, looked very competent offensively for the duration of the season after that game. They found defense. I mean, I'm looking at the last few scores here for them that they've given up: 14, 20, 16, 17. They did give up 31 to SMU, but we all watched that game. They had that game pretty much in control. So this is not a Clemson team that deserves to be disrespected like this and carry a 12-point underdog number around for a whole week. Like, that's just, it's very disrespectful. Yeah. Dabo Swinney's got a lot of confidence, experience, and he's got a couple championships under his belt. I like him, actually, in a matchup against Sark. I think this thing is nip and tuck. I think a field goal solves the issue here, and I'm not sure that Texas is the one that's going to get the field goal. There are going to be upsets in this college football playoff. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of them, and it will be due in large part to the amount of disrespect that has been thrown Clemson's way. So give me Clemson plus 12. I'm going to agree with you there. I'm going to, what would be called an off the sheet for most of this year. I'm going to go with the Hawaii Bowl. This is San Jose State, all right, a West Coast team taking on South Florida. Now, listen, I'm in Florida. We went to Hawaii a couple years ago. It was a 3-day trip, basically. That's a lot of miles to travel. I want to ask. I don't even want to wake her up, but that's a lot of miles for a team to travel. And then you're totally out of your element. So you got to deal with the travel, the jet lag, and the distractions. I don't know what time in the day this game is going to actually occur on South Florida time, or for the South Florida Bowl.
About 6 hours back.
San Jose has experience going to Hawaii, and I just think they're better equipped for this. And to be honest, San Jose's a pretty decent football team. They can score points. I know that. Sometimes their defense is up and down. I figure with a whole week to figure this whole thing out, a whole week plus, they'll be on point there. I just like them as small favorites here. I think people see San Jose, they see South Florida, and they're like, South Florida should be favored. Well, maybe not, because San Jose is a good team. They're in their element. Give me San Jose -3 with South Florida traveling halfway across the world.
So my friend here is taking the Leprechauns, Notre Dame, -7. That's a Friday night game for those of you without a schedule in front of you. Then he's taking Clemson +12 against Texas. And finally, you give him all these playoff games, but he strays off and finds San Jose State -3 against South Florida. And I don't even know what bowl game that is.
The Hawaii Bowl.
You can find all the games, the times, the lines. Go to our sponsor, Bovada. You can find it there. You can wager on this stuff, do whatever you got to do, and you can figure out when the game starts. They'll be sure to let you know. Now, this is a nice segue. We're going to go into the pros here.
Hey, sports fans, if you're looking to take your game day excitement to a whole new level, then you got to check out Bovada Sportsbook. Whether you're into football, basketball, it's baseball, playoff times, pretty much any sport, Bovada has everything you need. Best odds, live betting, and fast, secure payouts. And here's the best part. When you sign up today, Bovada is giving you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's up to $250. That's free money to get you started just for joining the action. It's super easy to sign up, and they've got you covered with all the top games, player props, and more. Ready to bet, win, and repeat? Head over to Bovada and get in the game. Check out the link down in the description below, and let's go get those winners.
I'll summarize mine first, but then I want to summarize yours and let you pick, because you're having yourself a season to remember in professional football. Me, I was 1-2 last week. I'm 500 on the season, 22-22. I have a tie in there. I started off with the Chargers. I don't know what they were doing against Tampa, but it wasn't good. I mean, that was.
And we can we like discuss our text as we realize we both liked that game last week?
Yes, we both like that game, and Chad immediately said to me, "Oh, good, they should get blown out." And
So
they
even
really,
if I'm wrong, I'm right.
maybe there was a linger. I mean, I have to assume there was a lingering effect from that Kansas City game because while Tampa's a good team, they're not 3 touchdowns better than the Chargers
Yeah.
in Los Angeles. So that was a loser for me. I had the Bills plus 2.5 against the Lions. I just kind of felt like the Bills are too good of a team to lose back-to-back road games. And the Lions at 12-1, the NFL, you're going to lose games. They were just due to take a loss, and that was an outright winner for me. And then finally, listen, at some point, we have to acknowledge the Eagles are a lot better than we thought they were, despite all their drama. But the Steeler performance in that game was pitiful because that score was a lot closer than the actual game. If you watched a lot of the game, the Steelers felt like they were never in that game. They lost by 14. They could have lost by 28. I mean, literally, they were dominated. I took them. That was a loss for me. Now, Chad, he had the Chargers with me, but then he got right, and he did what he's been doing all season. He went 2-1 this week, 32-13 for the season.
A season for all
70%.
season.
70%. Your other winners, you had the Broncos, big win there. That was nice. And you went against the home team. You went against the Dolphins. And you got a nice winner there with the Houston Texans. So good for you. I kind of thought when you made that pick, I was kind of like, wow. I felt like the Dolphins still had a shot at the playoffs. And, they needed that game and not to be.
No.
So with that, I'm going to let the guy hitting 70% of his picks go first in the NFL.
All right, here's how I see it this week. We've got the rematch in can't even say this is this is basically a battle at the top here of this division. It's Pittsburgh now traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. We all know what happened in the first matchup. Pittsburgh does what they, have continued to do to the Ravens in Pittsburgh, and that is win the game. So it just makes sense that the Ravens, having a strong year with, an MVP candidate and a running back that's probably going to eclipse 2,000 yards. They've been big headline makers. Everyone expects that they're just going to come back with the revenge, and they may very well do that. That doesn't mean that this is going to be a blowout. And this is, in NFL terms, what the odds makers are suggesting is going to happen here. And Emil, I've got to think a Pittsburgh team fresh off of the loss that they suffered last week is going to be in no mood to get blown out again. And they're going against a familiar foe that they know how to defend. It's one thing they know how to do. It's to defend Lamar Jackson. And he's the engine that runs the Baltimore Ravens. So far as the Ravens taking off and running away with this game just because it's in Baltimore, I don't see it that way. All right. Pittsburgh is licking their wounds. And I think they're going to come in here extremely motivated and not willing to lay down for anything that the Ravens got going. So I think this is going to be a back and forth nip and tuck battle that is decided by a final possession and probably a kicker. And right now, I thought I'd never say this, but Justin Tucker is not to be trusted. not in 2024. So I'm going to give this edge here to a Pittsburgh team who is 10-4, but find themselves as 6-point underdogs. I am not going for that at all. I feel disrespected for them. So I'm going to take Pittsburgh and the points here. Another team that got embarrassed last week. Yes, it was a close loss, but you gave up 40-something points in your game. Detroit, who was the darlings of the NFL, has now been thrown into flux. Yes, they're ravaged with injuries. This is a tough football team that has some resilience. And they're going to face a team that's in complete and absolute shambles. I think that was lost number 7 or 8 in a row. I think the Bears were 4-2 at one point.
Yeah, they're 4-10.
They're now 4-10. And Emil, it just gets worse and worse each week. There's just so much video out there of Caleb Williams thinking he's playing 9U football and he can run around the field against guys that he's more grown, mature than. It's like he's really acting like that's what it is. And he can roll right and throw left, or he can buy himself 13 seconds in the pocket. This week is not the team to do that with because they will knock your block off. Detroit is coming to town with a major chip on their shoulder at 12-2. They're pissed off. They got handled at home by the Bills. They'll be in no mood for any of Caleb Williams' foolishness. Yes, I understand the game was close on Thanksgiving. Detroit probably sees that as a mark of when things started to try and go back sideways. So mentally, maybe this is how they get back on track. They go stomp the hell out of the Bears, who are just our wounded animal, right? They're waiting for the ref to come in, stand in, and wave his hands and just call the fight off. So I think Detroit comes in here pissed off and knocks Chicago's block off. Just kind of just put the season to an end. I know there's one more game here, but just really knock Chicago out of their season. Give me Detroit. And then finally, I stepped away from the Raiders after they stopped cashing checks for me, but I'm going to come back in their favor. Why? Because odds makers, I don't know what liquor is selling for in Vegas right now, but it's got to be cheap. If you thought you should make the Jacksonville Jaguars favorites at all at any time in this season, let alone on the road, versus the hometown team. Hey, the casinos are right there with this Las Vegas Raiders team that you're disrespecting. I can't see this at all. Now, I don't know if it's the Sharps or if the public money has taken this thing from Jacksonville being a favorite to the Raiders now being a small favorite at -1. Whatever the case may be, Emil, I feel all of the money moves that have moved that line in this direction are, in fact, the right moves. If I am going to bank on one of these two teams at this point in the season, neither one of them are going anywhere but home, I'm going to put my money on the Raiders, who just seem to have a little more fight than the Jaguars do. Jacksonville pissed me off last week, and it just showed me that they might have finally just checked out on this season. There's no way you lose to the Jets. There's no way you lose to the Jets the way that you lost to the Jets at home by a full touchdown. You couldn't even hold those guys out of the end zone on that final drive and make them force for a field goal. So that just tells me things might be winding down in the minds of the Jaguars. You're taking a Jacksonville team full of NFL players who don't have any vested interest in the outcome of this season. You're sending them to Vegas? Vegas in December? Oh, yeah. There'll be guys late to the team meeting. There'll be guys messing around in a walkthrough. I cannot see a focused Jacksonville team in Vegas here. The Raiders are still fighting for some. They may even be fighting for Antonio Pierce's job. So give me the Raiders, -1 at home against Jets.
So my friend here, Mr. 70%, starts with the Steelers, +6 in their big, probably going to decide the AFC North rematch with the Ravens. Then he's sliding over, taking a Lions team that gave up 48 last week to get right, playing the Bears, -6.5. And finally, the Raiders, who have flipped to a small 1-point favorite over the equally bad, maybe worse, according to him, Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to keep it simple. You know the old adage for when you're drunk, hair of the dog? You go right back to what got you drunk, right? I mean, you wake up with a hangover, you grab a shot of bourbon, and you keep going. I'm not going to run away from the Chargers.
We give you drinking and gambling tips on
Yes. The Chargers, this is a good analogy because the Chargers are a team that a lot of inexperienced gamblers would run away from, okay? I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that after taking KC to the mat, you and I were wrong last week, not because of anything fundamentally wrong with the Chargers, just that they had a hangover and they ran into a really hot Tampa team that can score. Denver comes in hot. Denver's played a weak schedule to date. I mean, good for them. They're 9-5, surprising all of us. And Peyton's doing a great job. But Bo Nix kind of reverted to some rookie mistakes last week. Couple interceptions. You're seeing a little more of that. The Chargers play really good defense normally. They didn't last week. And Harbaugh's a really good coach. They got to get right here, or they risk taking what was a promising playoff season and playing themselves right out of it. I think on Thursday Night Football, at home short week, short number, 2.5. I'm going to take the Chargers here. These two teams feel pretty evenly matched, and I think when they come out of this game, they'll be dead even. They'll both be 9-6. So give me the LA Chargers -2.5. Next, we talked about the Eagles. They may be the hottest or best team in the NFL right now. I don't know. But what I do know is they had a big win last week against Pittsburgh. Now they go on the road, laying more than a field goal against a very capable Washington team. This is a team that's 9-5, quietly 9-5, with a quarterback that he plays until the end. So even if this game is 10 points Philadelphia, Washington gets the ball at the end of the game. They're going to try to score. They keep playing. I kind of feel an upset here. This feels like a division upset to me this week. I'm going to take the Washington Redskins on our show, plus 3.5 against the Eagles. I don't know why. It just feels like home, getting more than a field goal, playoff caliber team, good coaching staff in Washington. I like that. And then finally, got to give Mike McCarthy some credit, right? The
What?
Cowboys were 3-7. Well, it's easy to attack Mike McCarthy, right? He is. But like I say to your brother when he talks about getting rid of his team's coach, who do you replace him with? Like, who's a sure thing? McCarthy's won a lot of football games. He's won a Super Bowl. I don't really think he's necessarily the problem in Dallas. Because if he was, when the Cowboys were 3-7 with the backup quarterback, we would have seen them just collapse and do a Raiders. But they did. The Cowboys have won 3 of their last 4 games. They're running the ball. Rico Dowdle has over 100 yards 3 straight games. The one loss was that weird loss to the Bengals on a block punt. They're getting 4 points. And here's what I read last night. 4 weeks ago, Micah Parsons came back. Since then, in those 4 weeks, the Cowboys lead the NFL in sacks. They lead the NFL in pressure percentage. They're doing things because he's that good of a player and changes that front seven that much. And that's the only way you're going to stop a team like Tampa. You got to get after Baker Mayfield. You got to make him make mistakes, and he'll throw you a couple picks. Dallas is being disrespected at home, where they haven't played well this year, but they're getting 4 points. They're fighting. They're playing better football. I like the Cowboys in a primetime Sunday night matchup. They don't want to get embarrassed at home. Give me Dallas plus 4.
All right, my man Emil here is going to jump back in the well with the Chargers. He doesn't feel like that wound was opened up enough, so he's going to take them here minus 2.5 against Denver on Thursday. He is going to back Washington against the super Philadelphia Eagles, who won the Battle of Pennsylvania last week. Maybe they're still fat cats after that. And he is going to put the money on his team, America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, in their home matchup against Tampa Bay. And so that is our NFL predictions for the weekend. We've given you the college football rundown, and we've given you the NFL rundown. And you know what, Emil? We'll just launch into a talk right here about the state of college football. So, you guys, listen, the NIL has been a big talk. Transfer portal has been a big talk, of course, because we're in that time of year. And it just seems really, really wild for us to be in that situation where we've got 12 programs in the college football playoff that also must worry about filling their roster in the transfer portal. So we're going to have a little discussion about that here.
On the wall from one of these schools that's worth a lot in terms of just the connections. Like at these elite schools, especially some of these private, well, I shouldn't even say it. The Ohio States, the Penn State, their alumni bases are super strong. Miami, USC, Notre Dame, North Carolina, Michigan. You're getting a Rolodex for life. So when they started going and say, well, no, they need more. They need the NIL. It was always going to be a disaster. This only had one way it could go. It wasn't going to be this nice collegial thing like, here, Chad, here's 10 grand so you can get yourself a used car and some pizzas. Because once you introduce money and people start competing, there's always some middle-aged guy with a pitiful life who lives vicariously through his college football team and says, well, here, I've got $10 million. Use that. Go buy some kids.
Sure. Absolutely. There's always going to be competition in this thing. And I don't know if we ever voiced that really on our show, but we were definitely both thinking this. When we call this a disaster and potentially not good, I don't know if we did a good enough job of articulating it and maybe not so much looking like we were just haters trying to hold on to, our glamorous thoughts of what college football used to be in the past, but that was my thought process. This is going to get out of control. We've seen what it's been like in the past as they try to pick up players and the competition that happens there and the rules that get bet and the lines that get crossed. Now you're saying it's going to be legal to pay kids. That's a line's going to get crossed there. They're going to go to the edges of what's legal there. And now you've got all this stuff going on. I don't think either one of us, though, really foresaw the NCAA acting like complete children and not wanting to put 1 ounce of guidelines in place.
Well, that's the big. Give you an example. They were in there talking about gambling allegedly. They were before the Senate committee yesterday. I think it was the head of the NCAA, and my favorite senator, John Kennedy from Louisiana, got the floor, and he chose instead to go in a different direction. And he said, he said, I don't really care what you think you are. That's fine. But a biological man competing against a biological female is not fair. And we're here about fairness and equity. And that's not fair to make her go in a different locker room if he decides he wants to come in her locker room. And, the NCAA guy started babbling with babble talk. And Kennedy goes, you know what? Why don't you do yourself a favor and go on Amazon and buy yourself a spine? He goes, show some leadership here and take a stand. Yeah. He goes, take a stand on what's right. And again, the NCAA is basically, he told the guy at the end, all you're interested in over at the NCAA is cashing your checks and being on the tee. And that's it.
That's it.
Essentially, they're doing nothing about the NIL because they threw up their hands and they said, if we can't have everything we want, we're going to have nothing.
Yeah, we'll do nothing. We will. This is what you guys wanted. So we're going to kind of, in a way, let it be the disaster that we're hoping that it'll be. But for what reason? Because it's not going to go back. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. You can't. But the further you let it run like this, the less you're going to be able to regulate it down the road. And I honestly feel like within the next 12 months, college football needs to make a decision to form a super league and have one sole commissioner over it, who answers, of course, to all of the athletic directors for all of the member schools. So you can make it 48 schools.
The next step has to be contracts at this point, because if you're not going to do contracts, then, like I said to you in our text exchange, you're going to have, it would be like Saquon Barkley waking up on Monday morning and go, we weren't playing last night. I caught that Bills game. Man, I like their offense. And then on Tuesday, he calls the GM of the Eagles and says, hey, I'm playing for the Bills.
Yeah, and look, I don't ever want this to sound to anyone who might listen to this like I'm against the kids on this, because I understand the situation that these kids are in. So James Franklin was talking about the backup quarterback who's leaving.
And he's a big part of their game plan, by the way.
And he has to, Emil, based on how this is set up. He has to do what he's doing. Okay? The starter's saying he's coming back. It's quarterback. The kid wants to play. And let's not act like they don't lie to these kids, too, to get them on campus so that they can have depth in case they need it. The kid wants to play, all right? And for some of them, it stops even being about playing in the NFL. If I've got to leave Penn State to go to Northeast Idaho or Sac State, I just want to play. Because obviously, if I don't play at Penn State, I'm not going to play in the NFL. I'd like a chance to just play college football. So if Drew Aller says he's coming back for another year, and that means I'm not going to play, well, I would like to go play somewhere. And for me to have the best opportunity, I have to get into the transfer portal earlier rather than later. Oh, and by the way, here's the transfer portal window. It opens up in December, and it starts there. I can't go in there late and say, hey, guys, what about me? I can't do that. And the hard part is they have to have this transfer portal window when they do, because classes start in January. So I don't know what they do here.
Well, because they Nick Saban was always ahead of himself. They've kind of boxed themselves in here. The article you sent me last night about the Branch brothers transferring from USC, I kind of knew that was going down because I follow the team. Mm-hmm. They were the wide receiver, not the safety. I forget the wide receiver's first name. He was pissed off because Lemons replaced him essentially as the number one option. But what really caught my eye was at a presser earlier this week or late last week, Lincoln Riley made the comment and, kind of raised the reporter's eyebrows of, these, I don't know why our fans, they have to get used to this. This is just the way it works anymore. Every team, in the Big Ten has more than 10 kids in the portal. We're not unique. These kind of decisions need to be made when you're running a professional organization.
That's what it is, man.
And the reporters, you could see the look. He goes, well, and he looked and said, that's what it is. He goes, let's just be honest. We've introduced money into this. We are running a professional organization. That's why schools have general managers, literally general managers. So at some point, you're either going to have to acknowledge what you've created, start to have contracts. In other words, hey, you're getting $1 million. You can't leave here for 3 years.
They'd argue against the fact that the coaches get to leave.
Coaches get to leave the NFL too. If I'm playing for the Cowboys and I'm Micah Parsons and Mike McCarthy leaves, I don't get to void my contract.
True.
You're being paid.
Incentives should be built into these contracts too, if we're going to go this route.
Well, what I'm saying is you're being paid. In the old days, the argument was better for me. If you wanted to say, let's transfer because coaches can leave when kids were getting an education but no pay, then I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You went to play for East Cupcake State because you like Chad Wilson, and Chad Wilson's at Miami now, so you can leave East Cupcake State. But if you're getting paid, if they gave you a check to go there,
your contract with us.
That's it.
Period. End of story. But, Emil, couldn't a contract get voided, get breached? Can I really hold somebody?
Well, that would be
Can I
where
force you to stay here.
That's why you have to have a complete, you can't force them to play football, but you could, if you had a set of rules, say, well, just like the NFL. No, you don't have, you could say, hey, I don't like playing NFL football anymore. I retire. I quit. But if you have a contract, you can't go play for any of the 31 other teams.
What if? So let's play quasi-commissioner or commission, since it's two of us here. How would you set this up? Would you do something where they have contracts, and I still think you need a super league, right? So let's say you're in the super league, 48 teams, right? Because you think 48 is better than 64. Would you say?
Well, there's going to be people that want to be in that league, so you might actually have to.
Sorry.
You might have to go to, I'm not kidding you when I say this. You might have to create a league and a complete relegation model.
Sure, that might be fun too. For any of those who watch Ted Lasso, but that might. Anyway, so you have the Super League. So let's say the Super League's 48, and you've decided to go join a school in the Super League, and you do an NIL deal, which there should be contracts now, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, based on what we think you are. You're signing a contract. I think those contracts should probably be public knowledge, crazy as that is for a 17, 18-year-old, but it should be public knowledge. So now there's, complete transparency. So everyone knows what everyone is getting, right? And whatever problems that may cause within your team, so be it. You guys are going to have to manage that better. Oh, we're getting general managers anyway. Every one of the teams should have general managers. And if you
it's almost going to be a requirement because the coaches aren't going to want to deal with this.
No, they'll start leaving. Which we've already seen.
Yeah.
But if you decide now that you want to leave the school, you can leave, but you can't join another team in the super conference.
Right. And I think the way you're going to need to set it up, and kids will have to make decisions here because some kids there's not many, but there's enough that come from some wealthier families. I think you only have to sign a contract if you're being paid.
Sure.
In other words,
not to get paid.
Yeah, if I go to USC and they just give me an education, I say, no, I'm good. I don't need the NIL money. I'm okay. You keep that check for $50,000.
I'm free to move how I want.
I can move. But the minute you get paid, well, you've turned it into a professional relationship. We're going to be professional now.
I think so, man. And that would be my throwback to any of the people who pushed super hard for this thing. And I can't talk to each one of them and ask if in your mind you envisioned it being what it is now. I don't want to do that. I know there's some people that are okay with it. And their response is, well, they've been profiting off of these kids for years, billions of dollars, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, okay, sure. Like Apple is profiting billions and billions. Amazon's profiting billions and billions.
Listen, I'm like you. I'm
There's a guy in a
hardcore.
warehouse, and he's not sitting there thinking, I should get 1.5 for throwing these. You know what I'm saying?
I'm hardcore sports, okay? So here's how I kind of look at sports like you. There's certain teams, not many because you only have so much emotional energy, that I put emotional energy into. Other teams, I'll call myself a fan, but I have no real commitment, emotional energy. Give you an example. I like the Lakers. If the Lakers are in the playoffs and playing well, I watch them and root for the Lakers. I consider myself a Laker fan. I don't have a lot of emotional energy in it. If they don't play well and they have a shitty year, I don't care. I like the Kings in hockey. Not a big hockey fan. In the spring, if it's good, I'll watch the playoff games here, a quarter, not any emotional energy. I'm like you. You like the Yankees. I like the Dodgers. We have a ton of emotional energy in that. I used to have a lot more of it in football. What I said to you over the weekend is this. For as goofy as the NFL is, and it is goofy, at least they have rules. So on Sunday, I found myself watching my 5-8 Cowboys because they're still my team. I'm losing that attachment to USC in that if they're having an average or bad year and I've got something else to do, I don't spend a lot of time searching their game out if it's 10 o'clock, especially if it's 10 o'clock at night or, it's an odd time. It doesn't fit my schedule because I just don't have an attachment to the players.
I think it's hard, Emil, because over time you're going to know less about the roster turnover of who they acquired in the transfer portal. And then you just won't even know who's playing for your team that you used to root for.
But that's what I'm saying. I watched a Football Life the other night, and I watched Marcus Allen was on, and Ronnie Lott was on it. And, I had a connection because I grew up watching those guys. Marcus Allen, even when he went to the NFL, I was a Cowboy fan, but he was my guy. He played for the Raiders. If the Cowboys weren't playing the Raiders, I was pulling for the Raiders. I mean, I liked Marcus Allen, right? I don't have that a part of it is, of course, I'm older now, but still, I don't find myself boy, I really love that kid at SC. I hope he does well. I mean,
how about the situation where you have a year that USC had, and in the past you could say, hey man, they've got a sophomore running.
Yeah, right.
Well, this freshman quarterback that's going to be starting there next year. Things are looking up. The future looks bright. You can't say that. That kid will be in the portal, or they'll bring in a junior and put him ahead of that freshman.
There's a great example. You actually used an example. They had a kid. Woody Marks came in from Mississippi State, had a really nice year there. Mm-hmm. The kid behind him from Texas was a sophomore, a redshirt freshman or a sophomore. Joyner, good kid, probably got 60, 70 carries, got 7 yards a carry, good speed, nice size. I'm looking going, they got a nice solution here at running back. Kid hits the portal. He played. It wasn't like he was buried on the bench. So here's my thing as a fan. It's not being a bad fan. I mean, I've been, as long as you know me, I like USC. But how emotionally invested can I get in a process like that?
Yeah. Imagine if you mentioned the Lakers. What if Kobe was there for 2 years, then he went to Charlotte, then he went to Dallas, then he went to the Knicks? What if Shaq did that?
Yeah.
You're going to be disinterested.
Right. Or you're going to be the fan. I'm a football, baseball guy my whole life. Basketball, I like it. Because I could watch competition of any sport. So if you say to me, hey, it's April, the Lakers are making a playoff push or they're making a run, I'll watch. I like it. But if they lose at night, I might be ticked off for 10 minutes, but I'm not ugh. If the Dodgers lose a big series, I'm ticked. That's what I'm saying. If the Cowboys lose a big game, I'm ticked. And I used to be that way very much with USC, as you know. But it's becoming less and less, not because of their record or anything. It's because I have no connection, as you just described, to these players. I'm
going to paint a picture for you. If they don't do anything about the state of what it is in right now, here's what I see happening with college. Since everything is analytics nowadays, they're going to continue to look at those numbers and feel like we don't need to do anything. We've got viewership. Okay, cool. Over time, people are going to fall into the category that you just described, disinterested. Even if you attended the school, simply because, yes, there is a school, there are colors, but it's always about people. We have no connection at all. That's what happened to college basketball because of the one and done. There'll be no connection. You look at the numbers, though, people are still viewing, and that's going to be just about bets. That's just going to be about
It's going to be a gambling sport. That's what your whole
You're watching.
existence is going to be. Saturday afternoon, people
That's right.
want to wager on it.
When you drive the fans out, which includes alumni, because when you start losing alumni, that's going to be an issue. You're going to drive the common fan out. You're going to drive the alumni out. It's just going to be about betting. And then when it becomes all about betting, once a sport starts becoming all about betting, then we start falling into the category of people start questioning the outcomes, the results, and then you could lose even that crowd.
You mean boxing?
Hey, you start questioning what's happening because it's all gambling now. And then we've got social media, so something can spread like wildfire. It only takes a game that gets kind of a big-time game, a USC Texas, God forbid one of these college football playoff games get called in a funny kind of a way, and they start this thing about, oh, it's scripted, or, the refs are bought, and da-da-da-da-da, and then that's it. And now your sport's going to die really fast. It's going to die really, really fast.
And that's what happens over time. And we've talked about this on other shows over the years, but like that really is what happened. People forget there was a time where two of the biggest sports in the United States were thoroughbred horse racing and boxing.
Absolutely. You watched boxing on Saturday afternoon on ABC.
Oh,
Saturday afternoon in the spring when you should be
and
out.
You grew up in New York. I mean, they still do it in the Post, but you remember how big the horse sheets were. The program was in your sports pages in the big cities. The tracks, a couple of the big ones. What's the big one in LA?
Calder?
One of the two
not
big,
Calder.
Hollywood Park or the other one.
Hollywood Park.
That closed. I mean, was Hollywood Park the one or Santa?
There's Santa Anita, and it was Hollywood Park.
Which one of them closed? They wanted the property to.
Well, horse racing's dead in this.
Yeah.
One. I think they still do the Kentucky Derby, but everything else is.
7 years ago, if you told a 30-year-old horse racing will be dead 7 years from now, they'd be like, "Yeah, okay."
Right.
And that's what's going to happen with this. And don't forget, and we've talked about this over the years. Less and less kids in middle class to upper middle class areas are playing football. The pool is shrinking because mothers are saying, I don't want little Johnny to get hurt.
Right.
So what's happening is you've already started to shrink who you're pulling from. Now, in many cases, it happens to be better athletes, so it's still okay. But if that continues, you've got forces coming from this direction, shrinking your player pool, which also means down the road, you've got less fans.
Yeah, I'm already hearing a bunch of what you would call hardcore dads, football dads, saying, I really want my boy to play baseball because they're seeing the Juan Soto contract. They're seeing the Aaron Judge contract. They're seeing the Mookie Betts contracts, the Shohei Ohtani contracts, and be like, man, for that, he doesn't got to get hit in the head. He's not going to tear his ACL. He's not going to potentially.
Yes, and the question you asked earlier is not as pertinent. Like, well, if I gave you $10 million, would you stop playing? Baseball and basketball are skill sports. And I don't mean there's a lot of skill in football. But football's got a certain kind of visceral violence to it, like boxing. You gotta want to play football. Like, in other words, you gotta want to play any sport. But baseball is a skill sport. So as long as you're not scared of the ball, it's about your skill. Basketball,
yes, I will say this: nothing will sap your desire to run into men full speed with armor on like several $1 million. I'm sure if Conor McGregor was still making $100,000 a fight,
right,
he'd still be out there.
What am I saying it clearly? I don't mean to suggest football doesn't have skill. It has a lot of it. But with the skill, you've also got to have a level of violence, just like boxing has skill. But there's a certain component that I have to be willing to let another guy punch me in the face.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And yeah, I'm afraid for this long term of the sport. So some things really need to be done fast. All of these other changes have happened quickly. And I think if they're slow with it, at the college football level, it will start affecting the NFL as well. The product you're going to send out of the colleges to the NFL, and I'm talking just from a development standpoint, because they're not coaching these kids anymore. The moment they don't appear to be up to snuff, which could be 2 weeks into their first fall camp, they're out of there, or they're thinking about a transfer portal replacement, or whatever the case may be. You get on a staff as a coach, A, because of how you recruit, so you may not even really know the position that you're coaching. And then B, it's about the scheme. And then the last thing is the actual technique. And the more and more I talk to these players, they're saying, I'm not getting coached. I don't feel like I'm getting developed. I don't feel like I'm getting better here. So yeah, I really should just move for the money because I'm not getting better anyway. It's why
Well,
I really have
I mean,
it's why I have a business. So I'm not
no,
but you're sending that to the next level. This is what you're going to send to the NFL. So you're going to have these kind of players. And on top of that, they're already going to have money. They're already going to have money.
from my seat, the NFL's talent, as far as the skill and talent of the players, is at an all-time high, but the product is probably nowhere near, at least from the way I look at it, anything I watched from the 80s through the early 2000s. Like, I think the product they put on the field, we watch it because we love football. I don't think it's a great product.
I've been telling kids, and I honestly mean this. And so if any of that, that's listening to this show that are in, high school aged or college or whatever, the better opportunities are going to come in the group of 5 and the FCS level, maybe even Division II level. There's more stability. There's going to be more development. Your position coach is going to actually know the position. He probably played it or has experience coaching, and he's not a recruiter. And you'll probably have that same guy for the duration of your time there, or at most maybe 2 of those types. You will know who your teammates are every year, so there'll be a certain amount of bonding there. And then when you guys step on the field, there's a certain level of comfort because I've been with this guy 2-3 years. We came up together on special teams running down on a kickoff, so we know each other. So now he's the corner, I'm the safety, or he's the wide receiver, and I'm the quarterback. Whatever the case may be, you're going to get hungrier and better developed players from those type of schools that are going to get into the NFL. Now, those guys are going to be 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders, undrafted free agents because of the name brand of the school. But I'm going to get into camp as one of those guys with someone who came from one of these Power 4 schools that hopped around and just took the money and never had the same coach, didn't get any kind of development whatsoever. And I am going to look better in camp than that.
And here's the thing: in today's,
I'm going to make this last point. If I know the history and my experience with the NFL, it will be at first 4 or 5 teams that will have the guts to say, we're going to play the 4th and 5th round. We're going to play that guy. And this first rounder can sit. Maybe we even cut him, or whatever the case may be. We'll play them because those are the teams that just keep on winning. They keep ending up in the conference championships because they don't care. And then there's 27 other teams that look at everything from a financial standpoint. Well, we've got to play the first rounder because we paid him $1.5 million signing bonus, whatever. I get it that Jimmy from Northern Iowa looks better, but this kid that we took from Ohio State, we paid him all this money. He's got to play. You're going to put that on the field against the teams that put their best players out there, and you're going to lose. And then it'll start to catch on. And we're going to have a whole bunch of that. I don't know what they do at that point.
2 quick points before we give picks. To your point on undrafted free agents, only because I follow the team, and I'm sure if we went through different NFL teams, we'd find more examples. Cowboys have 2 guys that will be starters next year that are playing a ton now on the offensive line. And it's the best they've run the ball all year. TJ Bass, undrafted free agent out of Oregon. Brock Hoffman, undrafted free agent out of Virginia Tech. There'll be 2 of their 3 interior linemen next year, along BB, the center they drafted from Kansas State. Since those 3 have been in combo, and those 2 guys have been on the field, it's the best they've run the ball, and they're just really good offensive linemen, okay? And the point I'm getting at is there's a lot of those guys out there, to your point, that if they stay in a program and develop, they're going to be they're going to get a chance
And
with teams.
they'll be hungry, and they'll be hungry. On top of better development, they'll be hungry. They didn't get NIL money, so they're not coming into this thing already fat.
And then secondly, if I was building in the current rule book now, okay, it might change as per our conversation. They'll do something, I hope. But as it currently stands, if I was building a Power 5 program right now, the model I would start to use is I recruit it. I have to nail my quarterback, of course. I have to have a quarterback because, you know, it's football today, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. But the other guys, I would really start to look and really dig into character and how much they want to be part of this school and this program. And I would start to build it like these other schools have done in college basketball.
How are you going to figure that out?
Well, I'm not saying you're going to nail all of it, but if I can figure more of it out than someone else, and instead of chasing 5 and 4 stars just because they have 5s and 4 stars, I'm going to start finding guys that want to have talent, want to be part of the program. Because the longer
what happens when your fan base crucifies you because you have the 46th ranked recruiting class?
But let me tell you why I think it can work. Look at college basketball, what happened over the years. Those mid-majors started to really give problems to the Dukes and Kentuckys because they'd have teams where the kids were there 3, 4, 5 years. And they'd get a team together toward, you know, as they got through a cycle with good players where they'd have 3 or 4 kids that were seniors. And these other schools would be like, oh, we got all NBA players. Oh, yeah, you got all NBA players that are freshmen that are here for the first year and gone. And now you're going to play a bunch of 22-year-old guys. It's kind of like when you know, I've been part of that when I used to still play basketball. You're playing pickup games and 5 guys come and you're like, every one of them's a better athlete than us, but every one of them wants to score all the points. So we're just going to play basketball. You beat them.
Yeah,
and they'd be like, how did we lose to these idiots? They can't jump over a carton of cigarettes because they're good. You know what I mean? Right. My point is, I think you can start to build college football teams a different way if you start to look at what you're up against. Because if I have my team and I've got 22 guys and 15 or 16 have been in the program 2 or 3 years, and you're coming in with all transfer portal guys, you might have more talent. I'm probably going to beat you if I have a little bit of talent.
Yeah, I'm at this point, I just want to see how this whole thing turns out. I feel pretty confident it's going to head in this direction. And I've always said this, a good barometer as to what the future of college football is going to look like is just watching high school football in South Florida, because we are ahead of every move that's being made in college football. Kids were free to move around here and go from school to school before that came into college football. So we got a chance to see.
Yeah, you were betting on the games before the.
Well, that's always been around, you know. Parents being offered money at the Little League level. We'll pay a light bill. We'll do this. We'll that. We've seen all of that here, and we recently had our state championships, and with the exception of the final game, which involved Teddy Bridgewater as the head coach of Northwestern High School,
right?
There's nobody in the stands. And there was a time where we had annual matchups in Broward County.
10, 15,000 people, right?
They would pack a stadium. You will not get that at all here. You will not. There may be 1 or 2 games. The 2 biggest schools in Dade County will meet in a stadium down here called Travis Powell, and you'll get that. But no other game will get that. I'm seeing that disinterest in high school football here, and I can pretty much attach it to what's going on. It's not about neighborhoods anymore. Kids come from all over to play at these schools because they have recognition or whatever, or they put kids into college, and there's no more community feel behind the team. So what am I packing into a stadium for on a Friday night to go watch? I don't even know these kids.
Well, and that's part of what made, high school and of course college football, part of what made it attractive to fans is just your bond to the school. The joke, the jokes were, what's the best thing a Penn State fan can say to a Pitt fan, or, get me a burger and fries. It was that little jab because it was your school against their school, but that goes away if the guy who played at Penn State last year now plays at Pitt, or pick the schools. The guy who
Sure.
played at Alabama last year plays at Auburn this year.
Florida had a running back that played for Georgia this year.
Yes. So how much can the fans really, unless they're deluding themselves, get into this rivalry when you have guys that play on each side of the rivalry in concurrent
No
years?
more go Army, beat
Consecutive years,
Navy, go Jimmy, beat Johnny, and I just hate the way that this looks.
Well, let's
we'll
give
wrap it up. We'll wrap it up from here. You guys got picks from us. We laid out the beginning of the college bowl season for you. We gave you our NFL picks. We laid all the whole weekend out for you. This is going to take us into our holiday. So we will not be seeing you guys until after Christmas. Next time you see us, Christmas will be gone. So we hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. You enjoy it with your family and you watch football. I hope you guys know who's actually playing in these games, some of these bowl games, because we've had a whole discussion on this. So I hope you guys enjoy that. So enjoy your holiday. For Emil Calomino, I'm Chad Wilson. Thanks for watching Two Chumps Football Podcast. We'll see you guys next week.